welcome to BIM Collaboration with Civil Data webinar. My name is Juliana and I work in marketing here at MicroCAD. And today's presenter is Phil Marshall. By the end of the webinar, you will know the impact BIM Collaboration can have on your business, the benefits you will accrue, and what it will look like in your organization. And most importantly, what steps you need in order to get started. Throughout the webinar, you can ask a question at any given point on the left-hand corner. You can ask Phil to revisit a step or ask any questions. This is your time, and we want you to make the most of it. And in the upper left-hand corner, you will find links to our social media and website. Also, make sure to check our YouTube channel. We post all of our webinars there at the end, so you can share with colleagues or rebudget it on your own time. And without further ado, we'll pass it on to Phil. Hi, Phil.
All right. So you should be seeing my screen now, and I want to say good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on collaboration in the cloud. The focus today is going to be on the collaboration. Some of the examples we're going to be using will show civil data and show how that can be shared, because it's not been shared a lot in the past, and now we have a new set of tools to work with. Collaborative design means that you're making the right information available to all the partners on the project, the right information at the right time to all the partners, wherever they need it, in the office, home, in the trailer. And what you get out of that, you get more productive designers, a higher quality design, and you get to avoid all the common errors that plague projects. My name is Phil Marshall, and this webinar is one of a series offered by MicroCAD to help our colleagues be more productive and effective. As a company, let's get there. As a company, MicroCAD empowers design professionals in the construction and manufacturing industries to increase productivity and meet project goals. With over 35 years of experience as a minority-owned business, we pride ourselves on working with clients through every stage of the design process to assess needs and provide tailored and effective solutions. Today, we are focusing on the functionality and workflow supporting design collaboration with civil data. Traditionally, civil data has been held separate from the design process because of the size and structure of the data. Now you can share that data easily and securely using the cloud services in Autodesk Construction Cloud. But it's not just construction. It supports design, engineering, and operations too. The link to design authoring tools is a product called Autodesk BIM Collaboration Pro. So this webinar is intended to give you an understanding of what Autodesk BIM Collaboration Pro is and how it works with civil data. Other webinars will cover other functionality of Autodesk Construction Cloud. One more point, the excitement of cloud services is that they can be updated and extended continuously. So this webinar will cover the capabilities as they exist today, but next week there could be brand new functionality. We will repeat these cloud service webinars in the future and expand them to cover all the new tools. First, let's talk about the problems that the Autodesk Collaborative Design tools are intended to address. This applies to both vertical and horizontal construction endeavors, architectural, civil, plant engineering. Projects are being more complicated, data is getting heavier, and the number of participants is increasing. These partners could be located anywhere but have to share information. Using a BIM model as a central data repository makes sense in this environment, but how do all these players get access to the data? From experience, we know that solutions like Dropbox are error-prone, FTP sites consume IT resources, VPNs are unpredictable, and SharePoint-like approaches don't provide the integration with the design tools that we need. Connectivity is no longer a 9-to-5 thing. People are working 24/7 from their home, their car, the trailer. We need better. Autodesk saw the solution as being cloud-based and tied to the software that you use in everyday work. Autodesk Construction Cloud provides access anywhere with any device, freeing up the workers to get out of the office and onto the site. It provides collaboration tools to enable designers to create submission sets for review and monitor the progress of the review. All of the project data from the BIM model can be reviewed in 3D or as a 2D drawing set. This data could be architectural, MEP, structural, civil, whatever. It's all in one location. And this isn't a vision of the future. Real companies are building real structures today using Autodesk Construction Cloud. Whether it's the world's tallest modular structure, complex highway and bridge projects, or commercial construction, all have benefited from Autodesk Cloud services. Today, I'm going to be talking about using 3D data with Autodesk BIM Collaboration Pro. But Autodesk also has an integration with Plant 3D. This allows infrastructure designers to share their work in the cloud, perform markups, and participate in the review process. And AutoCAD users aren't ignored. The Autodesk Desktop Connector allows other applications like AutoCAD to work in the cloud and share references. So let's talk about a collaborative project and how they work with teams. Usually a team would consist of people working on a discipline, but it isn't limited to that. Here we have created 3 teams, one each for architecture, structural, and MEP, but we could have other teams for survey, civil, environmental, or others. As we create the teams, we can assign individuals. Data from each of these teams is grouped in a folder and permissions set so that each team can only edit data in their folder. For Revit, cloud work sharing allows multiple users on the team to simultaneously work on a single central file, design and then sync to central. This concept is nothing new for Revit users. What's new is keeping the central file in the cloud. When the architectural team wants to share the model with others on the project, they would publish sets of models, views, and sheets. These are put in a shared folder available to everyone on the project. Each discipline could then explore the shared data and okay it for use with their models, which moves it to their consumed folder. Then each discipline continues their work. Just like the architect, each discipline using Revit can work share within its own team with its own central files. Teams using Civil 3D can access the data references and X references created by others on the team. Other data provided by the other team members, like architectural models or building footprints, can be brought into the Civil 3D model. Civil 3D surface data can be published for use by other teams. So we're working on so there is a bi-directional sharing of data, both coming into the civil data and taking civil data out to others. While actually working on a DWG file in Civil 3D, the file is locked to prevent others from using it. Sometimes Civil 3D users may want to prevent others from using other files and/or shortcuts, so Autodesk provides a manual lock-unlock capability if you want to ensure that no one is changing a particular file. While all of this is going on, members can communicate by creating issues for resolution and being involved in review processes. Partners in the project don't have to have an authoring tool like Revit or Civil 3D to participate in the collaboration. Anyone can create an issue, and the issue can be assigned to someone with an expected completion date. These issues can be managed, reviewed, and maintained in the document management module of BIM Collaboration Pro. A summary of outstanding issues also shows on the project homepage. Issues create an audit trail, which can be reviewed at the end of the project. Anyone with the right privilege can initiate a review process for sets of documents. People assigned to the review can mark up the documents, review and approve or reject, and the whole process is managed so people can see what reviews are in process and which are assigned to them. The review process is configurable, so you define what steps are required for the review. These collaboration tools, Revit work sharing, Civil 3D data sharing, release packages, consuming packages, issues, and reviews, can be configured in different ways and with different permissions to meet the particular needs you have on that project. Let's see how these things would look in a live project using Civil 3D, Revit, and BIM Collaboration Pro. Let me move my screen down. Here we go. So in live Autodesk BIM Collaboration Pro, what we have is data sets set up within the cloud. So now all of the companies who are using BIM Collaboration Pro have what's called a hub, or a central location in the cloud that stores all of their data. Within these hubs, you could have any number of Autodesk Cloud projects. Typically, these would also match to real-world projects. And these projects represent the work that you're doing. So you're organizing your data by that particular project. Within any of the projects, you can set up your own folder structure. Typically, as I mentioned before, the folder structure would follow the disciplines. So you have a folder for architectural, a folder for civil, a folder for mechanical, a folder for electrical, fire protection, and so on. So for each of these folders, you have the ability to set permissions. So on the electrical folder, you would want to assign permission access only for the electrical engineers and the people who work for your electrical consultant. By providing that permissions, you're ensuring that people are able to do the work they need to, but can't step on the toes of anyone else on in another discipline. Let's look at an actual file. Within the architectural area, maybe we have an architectural model. This happens to be a Revit model. And people can look at the model, can review it. You have the ability to, if this is a new model to you, to slice and dice it so you can see what's going on inside. And that's useful a lot of times when you're trying to evaluate a model that you haven't worked with before. So you can see what's going on at different locations within the building. As well as the 3D model, you also have the 2D drawings that represent that model. And as typical in the 2D drawings, you have the ability to mark these up. So there's a markup panel to creating red lines and establishing comments that you add to that particular drawing. These comments can be either private, which are kept within your own team, or public, which makes them visible to everyone on the project. Within the model, we can also have measuring tools. Remember that this is available to people who may not have Revit, may not have AutoCAD even. And if they wanted to measure on the model, they might want to see how wide is that corridor, 15, 9 1/4. Or maybe they want to measure how big is this particular room. So we see it's 173 square feet. So you have the ability to work with these models and get some information from it, whether you have Revit or Civil 3D or AutoCAD or not, just working directly in the cloud-based tools. By the way, if this drawing came to you not as a Revit model, but rather as a PDF, you still have the ability to measure the model. You just have to register the scale of the drawing first. Something else you could use for collaboration are issues. Those are these yellow dots. So if I click on one of these yellow dots, this issue is that there's a storage room with no door. So if we look at that, yeah, that might be a problem. So what you can do is anyone can create a issue, assign it to an object in the model, and provide information like we need access here, and then assign it to a particular person. This one was assigned to Douglas with a due date. Now this is a sample project, it's just a test project. We play with this. So you see that the due date was back in November. You know, Douglas hasn't done his job. So it's just because this is a test project. But you see that by assigning the due date, we can manage the issues for the overall project and be aware of which issues are overdue and which issues need attention. it wouldn't be unusual to have dozens or maybe even 100 issues on a production project. So you can filter the issues that you see to only the active issues, or only the issues that have been assigned to me, or only the issues that relate to civil data. So you can set up your filters for the issues in lots of different ways. Here we see the other open issues for this project. And if we click on one of the others, like gap of window opening, it jumps to a view so you can see that particular issue. That's this one. So those views are automatically related to the issue. And now we can look at that issue in the view that it was created. We talked before about creating reviews. So when someone has gone through this model and has established what they and has established the comments and concerns that they have about that particular model, then they could submit it for review. So what submit for review does is you could establish different review processes and take that document or sets of documents and push it through that review. So you might have an internal review that only goes to 1 or 2 people, and then there may be a project leader review that goes through your boss and then also the project leader and maybe a project coordinator. So you can have different review cycles depending on the people you want involved, and whether it's multiple people for the same step or whether it's just one person as a gatekeeper. So we could create a review process for these documents and then look to see what reviews are in process. So these are the reviews that are in process right now. It shows who initiated and who's the next action to be done. And it varies for the different people. And the reviews would then need to be done by that person to complete it. Now, when the review is done, a very powerful capability is that if it passes a review, you have an option of taking those documents and copy them to another folder. So you might have a folder which is the released folder, documents that are already gone through review, already been approved by everybody in that review cycle, and now maybe they're ready for client viewing. So you could establish that special folder that only gets documents that have gone through a review, successfully gone through a review process, and put them in that folder. Then set the permissions for that folder so that the client can see that folder and can't see other folders. We also have the ability to handle transmittals. So you could take any sets of documents, whether it's just a single document or an entire published set, and create a transmittal cover sheet. And it remembers, it provides an audit trail, so you can go back and see all of the transmittal packages that were released, who it was sent to, and whether they opened it or not, when they opened it. So you can set up these transmittal packages and provide the documentation after the fact that, yes, I did send that package on this date. All right, let's go in and look at what Civil 3D looks like when it's working in the cloud. This is a project that was set up to provide some road work and some grading for a hotel project. Up here in yellow is the footprint of the buildings that they need to grade around. Fairly straightforward project. The footprint would have been provided by the architectural designer from a Revit model. So this would be tied to the Revit model. But using Civil 3D with data on the cloud is almost the same as using it with on-premises data. So when we're talking about the working folder, setting up shortcuts, all the file references, this is the same concept. The only difference would be that you're using cloud addresses and locations rather than on-premises locations. And the way Autodesk makes it all come together is the Autodesk Desktop Connector maps those cloud locations to folders on the user's C drive. So you're identifying the cloud location, and Autodesk can map those to your own local machine. On this particular model, we've got a site layout file that was a reference file. And if we look at the actual path, I don't know if you can see it with the small letterings, but that is basically a cloud address, a cloud location preceded with a location on the C drive. So what it's saying is that this is a cloud location, but we're temporarily putting it on your C drive so you have fast response. But it does know that it came from a cloud location, which is important. When we're talking about data shortcuts, we see that the data shortcuts also have a cloud location. The location is up in the on the MicroCAD Training and Consulting Hub in the project of Civil Ascent Dev. Then under the project files folder, civil data shortcuts. So this is where the shortcuts folder is identified as being. Right now we don't have any shortcuts. So let's go and create a shortcut, and then we'll see how that works in the cloud. I think you're going to see that it's very, very much the same as you would be doing on premises. The only difference is the data is held on the cloud. So if we're going to create, let's use the center line alignments. I think there's two of them. Yeah, so there's two center line alignments. We're going to create data shortcuts for both of those. And then we'll look at in the cloud where it put the links. So here we have the centerline alignments, Ascent PL and Jeffries Ranch Road. So these are centerline alignments, which now we have the shortcuts for. If I take a look at my project, the cloud project name was Civil Ascent Dev. It was under project data, civil data, and there was a shortcuts folder, and under the shortcuts is of course where the shortcuts are put, and these are the links, the XML for those two, the Ascent PL and the Jeffrey Ranch Road shortcuts. So what we've done here is we've created that shortcut, but we've got it in the cloud. So using what you know about Civil 3D right now, right now, you can get to using it on the cloud very simply. It's very much the same things. A couple things I will point out is on the collaboration ribbon, there's a couple of tools that you're going to want to be familiar with. One is publishing surfaces. So if you have a typical environment like this, where you have an initial surface and we have a grading surface, we will want to publish the grading surface so that the architect can look at their building with that graded surface available to them. So by publishing the surfaces, it makes it available to people in other teams on the project. And the other thing I want to mention is the check reference status. That just ensures that you've got the most recent copy of all of the reference files that you're working with. All right, so let's look at Revit for a second. So this is the Revit model of that hotel that's going to be going on that site. What we want to do is put in a topo map from the data that the Civil 3D person put together. So here we've got a simple command, link topography. And because this is a cloud project that's going to look in the cloud to try and find where that topo data is. So this is under the project Civil Ascent Dev, that was the project. And it's under the file project files. And there's a shared folder. Remember what I said before, that we're going to use the shared folder to put data that we want to share with other people on the project. So the architect can't map in the grading surface until the civil engineer has gone through and said a conscious decision Now I'm ready to share this surface with the architect. So they did that with these models. So we're going to bring in the grading with the parking lot. We'll create a link. So the civil engineer is under control. All of the data is under their control. People can't go around poking around in the data. It's released to the other members of the team only when they say it's ready for use. So if I go to a 3D view of this, this is the grading model with the hotel sitting on top of it. So each individual discipline has control of their own data. Because of the permissions, only the people who are authorized can go into your folder and work with that data. And only your choice of when you share that data, when it's shared to the other members of other teams in the project. So it's still under complete control. All right, let's look at the cloud solution. So we talked about how this would go from the civil to the architect, and how the architect would provide the footprint, and how the civil will give back the surfaces. So what does that look like in so for someone who's not using Revit or not using Civil 3D? So this might be the project manager who wants to understand what's the status of the different parts of project. So in a sample project, we've got a design collaboration tool. And design collaboration will show the different things that people are working on. So here, for example, I've got I'm the MEP team, and I want to show the mechanical model. So this is the mechanical model I'm working on, and that is now available to other teams if they want to use it. The architectural team, for example, could bring it into their model to examine where the vents are and make sure that there's the ducts aren't a problem in the wrong place. If we look at all of the teams, you can see that some of the teams have, let's look at the civil team. So these are the civil models that are shared and available for other people. Some of these projects, you see, like the architecture team has these circles. What the circles represent are release packages of data that are available for us to work with. So if I picked on one of those packages, then I could see what the architect is doing. And of course, that would be the, let's get this package. That would be the hotel. This is a different project. Let's take a look at what this package is. This is the school that we were looking at before. So you can see, if you're the project manager, who has created what packages, when they were released, and how many people are working with them. So this is like swim lanes for each of the teams to see when they've actually published data. One more thing I want to show is model coordination. Model coordination is a fancy way of talking about interference. And with the cloud-based solutions from Autodesk, you can check for interferences amongst any number of files. In this case, we're looking at interferences between the architectural and a MEP model. So that's all the models I've got right here. But we could have any number of models. We could have checking against the civil utilities. So you've got underground pipe, and you want to compare against some structural foundations, then absolutely you can do that and find interferences. Here I'm doing architectural versus mechanical. So the interferences, it found 84 of them, are indeed architectural versus mechanical. Here's an example of an air handler unit that is interfering with that ceiling. So I could create an issue that establishes this is a problem. I can assign that issue to whoever I'm going to have fix it. I'm going to tell the architect to move the ceiling, or I'm going to tell the mechanical to move the equipment, and that will be their job to take care of it. But the idea is that we've got these interferences. We've established how many there are, what kind of interferences, what they interfere with, and now they can be resolved. And by the way, when we resolve these interferences, it keeps track of what interferences were created by which team, so you can establish what team is most likely to cause interferences in the future. All right, one more thing I want to show is this. All of this data is up on the cloud, and the Autodesk Cloud Solutions keep track of versions for you. So not only are you guaranteed to getting the most current version, but it also lets you see prior versions. So on this particular model that we've looked at already, there were 14 different versions. And if I look at the history, we see all of the different 14 versions going back to 2018 for that particular model. So it does have the ability to go back in time. And if we get a situation where the architect does something and a change that just isn't going to work out, you can revert back to a previous version. So that's useful. But one of the things that everyone asks is, okay, this is version 14. What did you do since version 13? That's a very common kind of question. So there is a tool, compare tool. And what it does is it shows between the two versions what things are new, what things have been removed, and what things have been changed. So in this case, we see there was one object added. It's in green. What is it? It's a 4x4 window. So it knows not just that there's a window there, it knows what kind of window, it knows all the information about the window. Nothing was removed. There was nothing shown in red, and two objects were modified. Well, the wall was modified, obviously, to cut a hole for the window. The door, how was that modified? If I click on the door and it tells me exactly what was done to make it modified, it was moved by 9.5 feet. So evidently the architect slid the door over to make room for another window, put the window in. So these kind of capabilities of being able to see what's new in this particular version, how is it modified from before, that's very, very powerful, very useful. All right, let me go back to here. So what we've seen is that how BIM Collaboration Pro helps the data to move and to be shared on the project, whether you're authoring it in Revit, Plant 3D, or Civil 3D. We saw how that could be shared between users in a team, and also how it could be shared with users in other teams. We saw the document management tools being able to keep track of versions and ensuring users get access to the most recent data. We showed you some markup and issue tracking, the review workflows, and transmittal registration to share the data. We looked at design collaboration, so it showed where the different teams published their work and what status those published packages were in, and allow people to look at any of the published data. And we looked at the model coordination tool to see interferences and how to resolve those interferences by creating the issues and assigning it to people who can make the issues go away. And what Autodesk provides here is a workflow flexible enough to be configured for any situation or business model. And to ensure your success, MicroCAD provides services to help you get started with BIM Collaboration Pro, and we will support you in any phase of your project so you can reap the tangible business benefits: smooth collaboration, improved productivity, risk avoidance, and schedule certainty. Before we catch up on the questions, let me mention that MicroCAD will present a series of webinars aimed at helping you be effective. Take this opportunity to tell us what topics you'd be most interested in by entering them in the chat box. We really want to address your needs. All right, so let's go on to the questions.
Thank you, Phil, for that wonderful presentations. And as a reminder for everybody, as Phil just mentioned, you can make a question on the left-hand corner. I already see a question coming in, and it is, all I do is surveying and grading. Will any of this help me in my day-to-day job?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good one to ask for the very first question. So basically, if you're a one-person outfit and you're not sharing data with others, what we talked about today was really all about collaboration. And it's tough to collaborate if you're all by yourself. So most of these tools would not be useful if you're a one-person operation. However, we see that less and less. Very, very few does it happen that you are working alone. You have to have a consumer for your data. Someone is taking your services to create that kind of data. And they typically are working on projects where you have many different disciplines involved. So what we spent the time today was less on productivity of creating civil data and documenting it, more about sharing that with others on the team. Most of the projects, I would say 95 at least percent of the projects mean that that data is coming from somewhere or going to somewhere else, not just by yourself. So the tools and processes that we talked about today really are aimed at teaming where you've got multiple people working on the project.
Got it. Thanks, Phil. And the second question is, we use CAD as well. How does that work?
Yeah, then we know that AutoCAD isn't ever going to go away, and there's still plenty of times AutoCAD is the best tool for the job. And the Autodesk recognizes that in their cloud-based software. They provide for people to use AutoCAD just like you could use the other tools. It does mean that you're working through the Autodesk Desktop connector, so that you're working on a cloud path, and that's mapped to your local C drive. That's all behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about it as a user, but that's what's happening. It is the Autodesk connector. Some of the things that it may affect you is if you have AutoCAD and you're using lots of XREFs, you would want to have all of the XREFs on the cloud to make them available to everybody in the same place, and make it easier to package up those drawings. And you'd want to make sure everybody's using consistent terminology and nomenclature so people can find the files that you're using. But yes, no reason why you couldn't use AutoCAD to do your design work.
Thank you. And the third question is, several years ago, Autodesk and a different reseller was promoting Vault as a data management program for Civil 3D. Has that changed?
I'm sorry, can you read that question again?
Several years ago, Autodesk and a different reseller was promoting Vault as the data management program for Civil 3D. Has that changed?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, absolutely not. That hasn't changed. Vault is a really great system for keeping track of AutoCAD files, and it handles XREFs very nicely. And there's no reason why, if you have Vault now as your data management system, that you wouldn't continue to have it. Vault was never intended, when it was originally created years and years and years ago, to be cloud-based. However, you can now take the Vault server and put it on the cloud. So there's no reason you couldn't have remote users accessing it from wherever they're working. And also, there are tools to enable data to be shared between the Vault server and the cloud server that Autodesk uses for Construction Cloud. So we can have it duplicated and synchronized between the two different systems. It starts to get a little handling some of the sophisticated technology to make all this work. So if this is something you really want to look at, give us a call, and we'll have some of our technical people talk to you about how that could be set up and what that would imply for your operation.
Thank you, Phil. And those were all the questions we had. Do you want to talk about the webinars, or should I?
Now, let me talk about the webinars. So Autodesk has all of these tools out there for doing the web design, for doing the cloud-based work. And because they are software as a service, as I mentioned before, they are constantly being updated. And so we are providing webinars to keep our customers updated too with the new information about what functionality is available. We have a webinar coming up on August 18th at 1 o'clock, which will talk about the tools and workflows within the AEC collection. So these are tools and workflows to build confidence in the way that you're working together. So workflows process is just as important as functionality. And then we have another webinar coming up on August 25th, again at 1 o'clock, where we'll talk about the Autodesk Docs issues tool. We briefly talked about the issues tool today, but this is going to be a deep dive into what the issues tool will do for you. And again, that's August 25th at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Phil. And yeah, as he mentioned, make sure to check our website for future webinars. We post all of our webinars there. And if you want to topics in detail, you can always take a custom training with Phil or someone else in our team. We also offer group classes online in case that's something you're interested in. So yeah, that concludes our webinar today. And thank you, Phil, and thank you everyone for attending. Have a great afternoon. Oh, and there's the contact. So in case you have any questions, any doubts, whatever, please feel free to contact me. There's my contact information, and you have also there all the office's phones for you to also contact us. Thank you so much, Phil.